Mhm.
And now we'll turn it over to you, Linda. So again, welcome.
Thank you, and thank you to Coffee with a Purpose. I'm delighted to be here today. I think this is my only campaign, if you can call it that, event for this year, so appreciate it, and it's nice to see some familiar faces. Hi, Ricky, and people that I have not had a chance to meet yet. So I am running for select board. I am unopposed. So I don't really have a campaign. I thought about doing a campaign website and I did not because I felt that that was not needed. But so why am I running for select board? Well, I was asked to run, so it wasn't anything that I had ever planned to do. I have been involved with Natick for many, many years, ever since my kids. I had two sons. Both went to Natick High and went to Natick Public Schools. When the older one was in kindergarten at Lilja, I got roped into running the Lilja Fair. It's now the Lilja Carnival, and everything kind of came from there. So I've been involved with the schools. I've been a PTO officer. I've been on school councils. I've participated in many different school-related things. I got engaged fairly on with the town as well. I've been a town meeting member and I don't even know how long. It's probably been close to 30 years, maybe 25. So I've been involved with the town that way. I was co-president of the Natick Education Foundation with Karen Edelman Foster. And then when she left to run for select board, I became the president. So I've been involved with the education aspect. And then after the Natick Education Foundation, after my kids graduated from schools, I said, well, what do I want to do next? And I said, well, I have an MBA in finance. Why don't I join the finance committee? So that was, I was on the finance committee for 7 years. I was chair since 2020, since I was the pandemic chair. And like I said, I was approached to run for select board. I felt like the finance committee is in very good hands right now. So I felt, after speaking with my members, I thought, well, okay, I can do it. And here I am. So that's my story and my involvement with the town. I've been thrilled to live in Natick. I'm not from here originally. I'm from the Chicago area, and then I lived in Los Angeles for 7 years before moving here. And when I came here, I was like, what's a town meeting? What's a select board? No idea. These are foreign concepts to me, but now I know, and I appreciate all the various traditions that have come with our form of government, including the select board. So that's why I'm here. But because I am running unopposed, what I've done instead, and some of the people here know this because they've been people that I have spoken to. I have a list of it's over 100 people. It's over 125 actually, of people that are in town. Community leaders, committee members, committee chairs, our school and town department heads and senior leadership. And I thought, well, let me reach out to them. So I have a set of 10 standard questions that I've been asking everybody. I've managed to speak to 55 people so far. My goal was 50 before the election, and I've gotten that. But I am going to continue to reach out. So if there are people that I have not spoken to yet, I'm going to get to you. You're one of them.
Right.
Probably one of them too.
But I have spoken to several people around this table that are here. So my goal then is to find out what the community priorities are and then publish that as well. I've gotten quite familiar with ChatGPT. In fact, for those of you that are town meeting members, that's been used pretty extensively in producing the last couple of finance committee books. So I'm going to make those results public. If you're interested, and I have your email address, I will do that. I'll also probably put something on Facebook when it's compiled, but that'll be after the. So I had the questions, and if we have time, I'd love to tell you what they are. Might give a little sneak peek to people that I do plan on interviewing later.
That was gonna be my first question to ask you.
Yeah, so I'd be interested in hearing the results. I haven't spoken with too many members of the public. It's mostly I've been trying to get a handle of people that are actively involved in town and what they think the issues are. Just as one perspective. Doesn't mean that I don't want to hear from residents and hear what they're thinking as well. But I wanted to know, when I hit the ground running as a select board member, are there things that I need to know? Are there things that I need to know about what's going on in town?
Are you, I'm sorry to interrupt, are you including community of faith leaders in the folks you're reaching out to?
I have not, but I think that I have at least one that was brought up to me, not as necessarily as a faith leader, but as involved in other aspects of the community. So I would certainly be open to that, because I know it's an important constituency, especially for the select board. So, yep. Okay, that's me. I don't know what the format is. If people want to ask questions, if you want to hear my questions.
Yeah. Well, yeah, go ahead, Donna.
I do.
Just want to unpin, so.
Oh, yeah, so other folks go. All right. Let's see. So I do that by remove pin. There we go.
I had the privilege of watching you at several FinCom meetings as you chaired it. And I have to say, I thought it was magic, because I admired so much the ability of you to allow all different viewpoints to surface and for people to respectfully communicate with each other. And I mean, FinCom has like quite a history, right? Even including the police coming in it years and years ago. But honestly, I have to say, I really admired that ability. And I guess a couple questions, but I wonder where you get your strength to do that, because you're so steady. You're steady as a rock, and you really do listen to all viewpoints.
Well, thank you, Donna. That was very flattering. No, I think it's really important as just in general in life to listen to people and to hear what they have to say. And that was one of the things when I first got on the select board, now I'm thinking ahead on the finance committee. Was we had a very bad reputation, and people would come before us and our members were rude. And that was something that I really wanted to change. I think everyone needs to be treated with respect. I mean, we have, if people aren't familiar with our current finance committee, we have a very diverse membership. We have people from all over the political spectrum, different views, but they all have a right to their opinion as long as they are polite. So that's something that I really, if I felt like that conversation wasn't people were not being respectful to other members or to members of the public, I would try to stop that right away. Because I think that, and I think that's something that I think is really important for the select board to do too. I think it's, and not saying that they don't, but I think that being courteous and kind to people that are coming, it's an intimidating environment, especially for people that are new. So I hope to be welcoming, and I hope that that's something that we can have. If it's not part of our norms now, it might be. I think it should be. Thank you.
Good. Do others have immediate questions? I definitely do want to dive into your 10 questions, so.
Ricky's had her hand.
Yeah, so very nice to meet you. And thank you for.
I was just interested, Linda, if Jay and I are on your list. We haven't left Natick. It's only been a year and a half, and our hearts and minds are still very much in Natick. Jay and I, with the Affordable Care Act, and also with CPA, so we'd love to be included on your list and get your report of what you've learned in your questionnaire, in effect. So
Thank you, Ricky, and yes, you are on my list. I have not reached it, just because if you haven't heard from me doesn't mean you're not on my list. I've only reached out to the people that I knew that I could have a chance of talking to, you know, in the upcoming few weeks. So my list is much longer and I hope to really get to everyone.
Mhm.
It might take 3 or 4 months, but I think that's important too, to get a sense of what's going on in the community. So thank you, Ricky.
Thank you.
Pat had a question.
Yes, well, I appreciate it very much, but God bless you all the time. You and Paul and Donna and all the people I serve on these boards. And I guess I was just curious about, I don't think the select board necessarily has a lot of muscle power in this, but the affordable housing situation and, you know, the really popular suburbs like Natick that are getting increasingly gentrified and pretty much out of the reach of lower income people. And I was wondering if you had any kind of ideas on that.
That's really interesting because that is something that has come up as a real issue in town, is affordability. And it's a difficult problem because, you know, in the sense that we're victims of our own success.
Right.
Housing isn't affordable here, for many young people. And of the housing that we do have, some of the ones that are affordable, they're being torn down and replaced by unaffordable housing. So it's a real significant issue, and I think I would hope that the select board would, if not be able to address the situation, because a lot of it is out of our hands, at least to have that conversation going and started. I think we already have, we have the MBTA Communities Act, which is its own issue because it doesn't require an affordable housing component. But there are various things that I think we do need to pay attention to and weigh in on as to whether or not they're good for Natick. I know that building downtown and having the developments go up is some people think it's great and some people are not in favor of it due to traffic reasons, but I do think that we do need more development in town. We need more places to live. I wholeheartedly supported our Center Gateway District and the ice loop over by Union Street and 135 in East Natick, because I think that we need to have more options for people to stay in town. I think for our seniors, it's very difficult. And we do have some programs in place. I don't think they're adequate, but I think one of the things certainly the select board can help with is making sure that people that are eligible for these programs are aware of them, because I don't know that everyone who is eligible is aware. So I don't have any real solutions to it, but I think that I know it's a community priority. You know, some of it is it's a Massachusetts issue. It's not just a Natick issue.
It's a huge
But
market.
it is, but you know, that doesn't mean that we can't come up with some solutions. And like I said, the MBTA Communities Act was one way that the state is trying to do some things to increase housing. So it's definitely a priority of mine. I don't know how much we'll be able to do, but I think that we need to get the right people in the room on this one.
Thank you for that. I'm not seeing any other hints at the moment. Oh,
I don't want to
Yeah.
monopolize, so if somebody
Yeah,
else has a
well,
question.
I wanted to circle back to not only to what
Let's
the
go to yours first.
to the 10 questions, but maybe even before what the 10 questions are. Ricky's question about asking that she and Jay be included just kind of brought back in my mind the idea of, how did you choose the people? And it's just my own personal opinion, but it does seem lately that there's a bit of a vibe in town of there's the old town, or the way things used to be, and there's a lot of modern progressive ideas and people pushing those things. Are you looking with your list of people to hear both constituencies? And I apologize for making it kind of a twofer like that, because obviously there's a multitude of voices, but how did you select
So
who
I-
you wanted to speak to?
I was after community leaders, people that were leaders in the community. I wasn't necessarily trying to do a sample of residents.
Okay.
Because I wanted to know, are there things that are going on right now? And
Mhm.
who better to ask than the people that are involved that I need to know about, that I need some familiarity with at the
Mhm.
beginning.
Mhm.
So this wasn't intended to be a survey of Natick or people's priorities. It was a definite,
Yeah.
somebody who does surveys called it an elite focus group. I don't like the term elite, but
Yeah.
it's targeted, and it was more for my benefit.
Mhm.
So it's everyone on the school committee, everyone on the select board, the superintendent, all of her senior leadership, the town administrator, all of the department heads, and then a few other people
Mhm.
in the town, everyone on the finance committee. And I went through all of the committees in town and tried to contact their chairs.
Mhm.
I only heard back from about half of them,
Mhm.
but I will follow up again.
Yeah, okay,
And
cool.
then, people and Kathleen and the library trustees, I've spoken to some of the nonprofits, in town. And like I said, I didn't get to everyone
Mhm.
because my list is long,
Mhm.
but, that's who it was.
Thanks for clarifying that. Yeah, sure, Donna, jump in.
Well, I hope you're not wishing I slept in, but I'm curious because about this whole idea of government speech. The town of Holliston recently invoked it to dedicate one of their flagpoles to government speech. Meaning that, and the way they did it was that once a month or something like that, a different flag would be chosen to represent one of the values of the community. And you know that the school committee in Natick has invoked its government speech to fly a Pride Progress flag. And I have to confess, I'm okay with that, but I have a nephew who's a lieutenant in the Coast Guard. And I have a dream that someday we look at the American flag and know that it embraces all the people that we think that it does embrace, right? Veterans have lost their lives and et cetera, but I just wondered if you had any thoughts about Holliston and, what they did with that. I mean, I guess it kind of means that like something for Black History Month could be flown in February and it's just one flagpole that has government speech, so.
I think that's an interesting idea. There was, a Mass Municipal Association and MMA webinar on flags. I didn't attend it, but I thought, well, this must be a topic of conversation in communities, maybe in response to what happened in Holliston. So I don't know what the rules are. I don't know what the laws are. I don't know what's involved. It's something that I think, and I'm gonna have to go back and watch the recording of that webinar, because it seems like maybe it is more of an issue for towns than I was aware of. I'd like to see things that bring people together instead of conversations that drive people apart. And, we have a lot of polarity in town and, anything that, and, as you know, because I believe you were on the school committee when, the pride flag decision was made. Were you?
Transitioning, I was on the policy committee that discussed a way to do it. And then after I had transitioned, they discovered that legally it could be done as government speech.
Yeah, so it probably wouldn't be my top priority to do something like that, because, I think we have healing to do as a community, and there'll be further fallout after the presidential election, and I'd like to see more voices involved in the community rather than take up something that is going to divide people. But that said, I'm gonna go watch that webinar and learn what's involved.
Well, I really, again, my first comment is I really appreciate that ability to bring all different kinds of viewpoints that you have. And one of the more difficult issues you're gonna have is the structural deficit.
Mhm.
And I'm counting on you and hoping for you to bring that kind of fair listening and all of that too. I think was gonna be a tough discussion, right?
It will be. I think that is my top priority, is really understanding and looking into the finances in town. For those of you that aren't aware, there is talk of potentially or likely needing an operational override for FY 26. That is the budget that starts a year from June, in June of 2025. That's when our fiscal year starts. The projections don't look very good right now, and so how we deal with that is going to be a subject of a lot of discussion over the next few months.
Can you give a little bit of background on that? My sense was that we were talking about override 2 or 3 years ago.
We were.
Can you?
Yep,
bring us up to
I
that?
was on the financial planning committee before it kind of, I don't know what the right word is. It hasn't met since the pandemic started. It hasn't been disbanded. But before then, in 2019, we were talking about needing an override. So we had a structural deficit, and what that means is we, every year, due to Prop 2.5, we can increase taxes, total taxes by 2.5, and then add on any new growth that happens in the community that can get added to the tax base. But that's the limit, more or less. But as you know, expenses have been growing more than that. And so at some point you run into a wall and you don't have enough revenues to support expense growth. So this has been a problem. Our last operational override was in 2008. There are some communities that ask for them every few years. Natick does not do that. So it's been there. Then the pandemic happened and we had the influx of a lot of government dollars. And that's what's really gotten us through the last few years. We've had the ARPA money, ESSER money for the schools. We've had a lot of different grant monies that we have applied to our operational budgets to be able to get through. Well, that's gonna be gone. That is gone. So where do we go from here? And those are tough conversations that have to be held. Now, the good news is I think we have a good cooperative climate. I don't know what the right word is, but I think that everyone wants to work together. The people that are involved at the schools and at the town side and the financial departments, I think that there's a good rapport. It didn't used to be the case, but it is there now. And so I think there's a lot of really goodwill. People are wanting to tackle this problem, and I'm hopeful that we can come up with some solutions. Now, do we absolutely need an override next year? Maybe, I don't know, I'm not convinced yet. I'm very data driven, so I want to see the numbers, I want to see proof that we really need this, that there are no other alternatives. And that hasn't happened.
Thank you.
Just circling back, I know there was a question in the chat, hoping to see a link to that webinar, just if
Yeah, I don't have it, but
if you can email it to me, I'll get
I
it
will
out,
find that.
to the group.
Yeah. Most of the MMA webinars are on their website.
Yeah, okay.
But I will track it down and
Yeah.
send it to you.
And I know we do wanna, but I know Rick has also echoed my wish to see the questions, but Ricky, did you have your hand up again?
I did, in a sense. I was thinking about it. Linda, the climate on a state level has changed from, earlier state willingness to pass on funds to the local government, particularly in housing and some education funds. And I wondered what forward-looking investigation the towns have been able to do to accurately judge what level of funding they may get from the state level, so as not to have to engage in an operational override.
I think that's based on conversations that we've had with our legislators. They're coming before the select board. I don't know if it's the next meeting or the meeting after, we're having Karen Spilka and Dave Linsky, hopefully, attend our meeting.
Next week.
Yeah, next week, okay, all says next week. Um,
So I've heard.
So I think it's important, to keep those avenues open. We have someone from the select board that is, I don't know what the title is, Paul can probably help me here, sort of the liaison to our representatives to try to get some insight into things that are going on in Beacon Hill so that we can know. I know our town administrator speaks with other town administrators, superintendent does as well, to try to get a handle on the pulse of things that might be happening that might affect the town. So I think that kind of engagement is really important to have.
Okay.
Great. Well, maybe you could start to tell us a little bit about the 10 questions.
You want to know about the
that-
10 questions? Okay, all right, so the 10 questions, I can read them and we can, if anyone wants to chime in and give me your answers. To some of these, I would like that, but they're not in any particular order, so
Okay.
it's not like number one is the most important, although it probably is. And the first one is about community needs and priorities. What do you see as the most pressing needs in our community right now or in the immediate future?
Hmm.
So that's question number one.
Okay.
I don't know, what kind of format.
Anybody want to weigh in on that? Let's go to question 2.
All right, question 2.
Okay.
Question 2 is, how can the select board and Natick community leaders work together more effectively? So that's again, in my role, potential role, in select board, what needs to be done? What is working, what's not working? How can it work better?
Mhm.
So that's the, thought behind that question.
I have a comment on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Pat. You know, sometimes the siloing of the town departments
Mhm.
has been a little bit of a challenge. I think we're fortunate to have very good political leadership, at least that's the way it seems to me. Town's really well run. But one area I know Paul's worked on it a lot is this charter reform thing. If we could get a little more sensible and simple way of governing ourselves. But it hasn't caught fire yet, I guess. I was a town meeting member for a number of years. Very painful. To be honest with you. And I think that really have to move somehow in that direction of reforming our process. Just curious, any ideas on that?
Yeah, so one of the things that the select board did a few years ago was they appointed a town governance study committee, and I was on that committee. And the unanimous recommendation of that committee was to form a charter commission, and that's the effort that's going on now. Now, the select board at that point really can't do much. They did their piece, they had this committee. We had a whole variety of different people on that committee, including as ex officio Sue Salamoff, who is affectionately known as the mother of the charter, and she agreed it was time to relook at it. So I think that there have been people that have been involved in the effort to get enough signatures, because you need signatures to get a charter commission going. We also have the Charter and Bylaw Review Committee, that's a town meeting committee that has been looking at some changes to the charter and bylaws. Not as extensive, most likely, as some of the things that are potentially envisioned by a charter commission. So I think it's a priority. I think that we need to look at it. It's been a long time. You hear about inefficiencies in government, you hear about how other towns are doing things that are better. It's not like it was in 1980, which was the last, when our charter was. Now, yes, there have been changes to it, but nothing substantial. So, yeah, I think that that's something, I don't really know what the select board at this point can do about that, but I do support that effort, and, I plan to be more involved with that too.
So just as a matter of history, so the select board did vote to endorse the idea of putting it on the ballot, so they can take a position on the concept of it.
Yeah, so you support it, but just getting those signatures.
They
is
can't
the
get
tough-
involved as a select board, they cannot, as members individually, we can.
Mhm.
Right.
Maybe you could continue with questions, maybe you could just kind of read them all off,
Yeah.
and then, you know, people, ones that might
Okay.
resonate with someone,
Alright.
people can jump back to.
I can do that.
Yeah.
All right, the next one is also about collaboration, but it's broader. About, are there specific projects or initiatives where collaboration would be beneficial? And that's throughout town with specific things like affordable housing could have been one that we already talked about, where you would want to get more people involved and, you know, not have a particular silo. So that's, you know, looking for areas where we need to have a bigger conversation. Next one is on economic development. What initiatives or strategies do you believe will contribute to economic growth? And then fifth, question number 5 is about infrastructure. Are there areas in the community where infrastructure improvements are needed? Please be as specific as possible.
Well, everything's fine.
I don't know.
Public services. How can we enhance the delivery of public services to better meet community needs? Public safety. Are there initiatives for enhancing public safety that the select board should be aware of? Before I continue, I just want to say that I made it really clear to people that they may not have answers to all these questions, that some of them don't apply.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're not a resident. You know, when I was speaking to department heads, they might not have had an opinion on this. But I wanted to have a common set of questions, and in some cases, people did have opinions, even if they weren't residents or something that maybe that I didn't know about, that came up. All right, next one is about cultural, social, and recreational opportunities. What cultural, social, or recreational opportunities would you like to see expanded or introduced in our community? Number 9 is about inclusivity and diversity. What steps can the town take to promote inclusivity and diversity within the community? And the last one is about communication channels. How can the town improve communication with community leaders and residents? So those are my questions. Gotten, you know, really great answers to some of these. Some things I didn't know, which is what part of the
Can I
exercise.
ask you to run through them real quick? Because I just wrote them down so I could have them because I think they're fantastic, but somehow I missed one. Can you run through them again from number 1 with pressing issues, just real quick? Thank you.
You could probably, if you're willing
Yeah,
to, also
I
put them,
can-
email them to me and I can, but,
Oh, yeah, that's great. Okay.
I can put them in the chat.
oh, sure, yeah. Is there, you might not want to weigh in on this if you haven't spoken to everybody yet, but, are you detecting any common themes or common answers or?
I'm not gonna answer
Yeah,
that one yet.
Fair enough, fair enough.
I'm gonna wait.
Hmm.
All right. Friendly, just a minute. It wouldn't let me put them all in there. I'm gonna see if I can do 1 through 5. Said it's too long.
And while you're doing that, Cindy's got her hand up, so Cindy, go ahead.
Sure. That last question is one that I think is fundamental to any change maybe in the structure of government, is that a lot of people who are moving to Natick are not from New England, where if you're not, as you said, if you're from Chicago, the concept of a town meeting, that whole thing is just completely foreign. And so I'm interested in your own ideas about better communication to residents about how the town works and how they find out, especially given the fact that there's the newspaper, the Metro West Daily News I get the Sunday edition and there's usually one story about Natick. And I'll just say that, I've tried to see if I could have the library have, circulating copies of the town report, which I think is just excellent. But I've been unsuccessful in persuading the library to make a display of 3 or 4 copies of the town report so that everybody who walks in the library sees it. There's no point in having a circulating copy of a town report if nobody knows that it's on the shelf. So that's just one thought I had, was at least to let people know that there is a town report. Curious about your thoughts.
Oh, thank you. I'd have to say, without giving any spoilers here, that I think communication was a thread that went throughout a lot of these responses. And it really hit home on Friday. I was next door at Sweetwater's speaking with Catherine Coughlin from the select board. And one of my neighbors came up to me and said, hey, I hear you're running for something. This is somebody who's lived in town for 35 years, like I have. I said, yeah, for the select board. And he said, what's a select board? So, I think that really hits home, that there are a lot of people that really don't understand. And he grew up in New England, so he should know. But there's a lot of people that aren't engaged at that level. I don't know how many of you got this postcard from a school committee candidate that had looked at how many people voted in the last 4 elections. And it was, a whopping 738 people voted in the last 4 town elections. And that's sad. And so there isn't the engagement that one would like. And if you don't have engagement with your community, it's difficult to have a community. So I think there's a lot of things. We have a communications director who's fairly new, who has a lot of really good ideas, and there's a lot of really good things that are going on in town, starting internally with communications amongst our employees. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I've heard a lot of ideas from people. I will pass those along to administration. I'm sure some of them are things that they have been considering. But the lack of a local newspaper is an issue, and we don't have one avenue of reaching everyone. We've got, we started having a newsletter in with a tax bill, but not everyone gets a tax bill. So it's very hard to find ways of reaching people these days. I know that they're looking at it. I know that they're, there's things that might be on the table, like even, mailing something out like the school department does. Once a year, they send their annual report to everyone. But I think it's a problem that everyone is aware of. That we need a better way of communicating with our residents. And I think it's gonna take a lot of different types of things to do that. There's not one size fits all solution. I've heard people say you got to reach people where they're at, and that's hard.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, this one is very near and dear to my heart. And I know one of the words that I've been trying to get out is, I know we keep saying we don't have a local newspaper, and we don't have one like we used to, but we do have the Natick local town pages that does go to every single address. And I worked very hard this time to convince them that they needed to do something about the school committee. And so they did. They asked them questions and they put that in there. And I wonder if, I should say it to Jay Moore, but I really feel like maybe there's an opportunity for us to partner with them a little better. And so I just like to say that to everybody that I can, because it literally goes to every household in Natick, and many people that I know read it because they talk about our sports, and they really do kind of fill that little bit of gap. And so I would love for us to see if we can't find a way to partner with Natick local town pages some more for that.
All right, thanks for that, Brinley.
Yeah. Who else has comments or questions at this point?
Ricky's got her hand up.
Okay, Ricky?
Yeah. I keenly feel the lack of local coverage of what goes on in Natick. back in my ancient days, we had very close contacts with the editor of the Middlesex News. We knew our local newspapers. There were reporters assigned to cover Natick. And I think we need to reach out to the Middlesex News or whatever it's actually called these days and lobby for coverage for Natick. The other thing is that I took the citizenship, the Natick, I forget what it's called today, but the citizenship course that's given, I think it's given annually. And this was 35 years after I'd been on the select board, just to get a refresher course of who's heading what departments and how things are done these days. And if that were promoted and made and have new residents made aware that it existed, when they're ready, they might actually take advantage of it. I think we need to promote these things because a lack of information about what's going on, if that's not your passion, leads to total apathy, and it leads to the lack of being able to get candidates for town meeting and the lack of involvement. So I think that's something we really need to work at. The other thing that in the course of your questions, I thought immediately that integrated finance advisory group between the schools and the town and the finance committee, I think is a very, very crucial committee. And you said it was sort of dormant. I think that's something that's immediate that could be started up again and should be.
Thanks, Ricky. I'm gonna have to listen to the recording for sure and then get down your thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks. Carrie's got his hand up. Carrie?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Linda, for everything. I've been listening attentively, doing some other work here I need to do, but another topic that's probably near and dear to a lot of people here, besides what Brindley brought up with education, is the environment. I, along with Bill Ramage, other people here and across the town, helped found Renewable Natick. In 8 short months, we drafted a resolution to move the town to 100% renewable energy, net zero emissions, which town meeting passed in fall town meeting 2018. And then with Ricky's help, we're able to help get Jillian's position elevated from coordinator to director, so she can have a seat at the big boy table, as they say, and have some more say in what direction things go. I know your hands are somewhat tied in terms of what the select board can do. Is there anything? What's your views on the environment and how the town could move forward a little bit more and maybe get some more things done to achieve this goal of 100% renewable energy?
Yeah, I spoke with Eco Natick, and that was really interesting last week. The days are blurring. But as I told them, that's something that has been part of my whole upbringing. My parents were organic gardeners. They had my mother was art teacher turned housewife who read Silent Spring and became an activist for the environment. So it's something that is, part of my core values. I've definitely had support for the CPA, and on town meeting, I think I've supported everything that's environmentally related. I think as far as the select board goes, I'm not really sure what's involved. I've asked the select board chair for a list of our current policies. I know that they're all under revision, and was told that there really isn't one place where they all are. So that's, yeah, Paul's shaking his head, yes. So that's something that I want to know, because I don't know if we have a position on that at all. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. So that's something that I need to figure out. But I think in terms of when things come up at town meeting, if there's a town meeting article or something specific that the select board could take a position on. I don't know what past practices on some of those, but I think that the CPA, it's wonderful that now we have the committee and that we'll have the opportunity to potentially fund some additional things in town. That's great, but, for renewable energy, I know on the finance committee, the conversations have always come up about the vehicles, can we have, electric vehicles? And it's something that's on the radar of our department heads, that we can potentially get, police cars and things like that. It's a lot more difficult when you talk about some of the larger DPW type vehicles, they don't exist. But in electric form, but I think that having that as part of the conversation and something that we evaluate every time we're looking at purchasing big capital equipment, will be great. I believe the select board actually vote on the new stretch code,
Yes.
the specialized
I was
code,
just
yeah.
looking up which
Yeah.
article number it was, but
Yes.
yes, in fact, that's where and how the select board gets involved by endorsing
The-
articles going to town
Going to
meeting.
town meeting, so yeah, I think the select board, and if I had still been on the finance committee at this point, I would have supported that as well, so I think that. It's great to have Jillian and her team, and I'm delighted that she's gotten, she's getting more help. And I think that the cooperation between our sustainability director and department and our various town departments has been fantastic. I mean, who wouldn't want somebody that can potentially find a grant for you to do something that you wanted to do for free? So I think that we have a really good foundation in town to move forward to addressing some of these, these issues. So if there are specific things that the select board can do or be involved with, I'm all ears.
It's Article 18.
I think more important is doing the charter thing and getting that looked at, how we can sort of have a town government that really functions a lot better than it does today. I've been a frustrated town meeting member and not sure. I think I'm going to be off the town meeting as of tomorrow. Partly my own.
Rick, I think had put in the chat that the desire to see a detailed diagram of the structure of town government. I want to say that some form of that does exist.
If you take a look at, it's not all in one, but the town budget, which is available on the website, has an org chart for every organization as part of the budget. So you can get a sense of who does what. It's not all in one spot, but if you are motivated enough to look at the various departments, you can see.
Yeah. Huh.
And if you go to the town administrator's page on the town website, there are two organizational charts. One is high level and one is detailed.
Oh,
So you
good.
can actually
Okay.
find that on the town website.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So maybe Rick and others can check that out. Linda, I wanted to circle back to something you said fairly early on about ChatGPT, and that it had become a major part of producing the FinCom book. And this might be a little bit more just kind of educational, more than getting to know you and your policies, but I'm intrigued, fascinated, confused by that.
All right, so if you're a town meeting member, you get a big thick book from the finance committee and that summarizes our discussion on every article.
Yeah, I'm familiar with what the book is.
So
but,
what we do is we get volunteers on the committee to write up certain articles.
Okay.
So sometimes the particular ones don't get, people haven't signed up for, but we record. The finance committee, I gotta stop saying we, records every meeting and there's a transcript. So ChatGPT can be used to summarize those proceedings. So it's a great way to start writing up an article, because you can never use it verbatim per se, but you can get it to get the gist, to get the questions that have been asked, the answers. So it just really saves a lot of time.
And do you have a hopefully somewhat thorough process for rereading what ChatGPT said to make sure?
Oh, yeah, well, it's different than if you're just querying ChatGPT about something. It's going out to the internet and
Yeah,
getting things. This is summarize
Okay.
something. So it's only working from the data that it's been presented.
Mhm.
So it doesn't tend to get things wrong.
Yeah.
The one thing you do have to pay attention to though, is that the recording software isn't always accurate.
Mm.
So sometimes it could drop a knot,
Yeah.
you know, so what it thinks, when you read the transcript, it actually says the opposite of what the person was intending. So you do have to use your memory
Yeah.
about, what actually happened at the meeting. So,
That's fascinating.
mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, I know the EDC has been piloting a app called Fireflies for the same reason, because it also, in addition to a verbatim transcript that ascribes individual speakers to what they said, it
Mhm.
does an executive summary, like it presents the data in 3 or 4 different ways.
Hmm.
So as when they do their minutes, they can do it in that summaries, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming ChatGPT does the same, this just seems a little more
Yeah,
bells and whistly.
this goes through a program called Otter.ai is
Mhm.
what's used to record the finance committee proceedings. And that also has a summary function, but it isn't super useful, so that isn't being used.
Yeah. Interesting.
And, you know, the current finance committee might not use it at all for this book, so.
Hmm.
um,
Mhm. If everyone does their assignments and writes the ones that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't need to.
Well, it's one of the challenges, honestly, of a citizen engagement. I know just finding somebody to be a scribe and take minutes, it's laborious.
Yeah.
And it's high pressure.
It's
And
horrible.
then you get, people wanting, public meeting requests and turning things around. I mean, that to me is one of the stressors
Yeah.
of trying to find people to get involved, because nobody wants to play that role.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was a real hole after Bruce Evans, was the finance committee secretary for years and did an amazing job. And then we had not an amazing job, and now Cody Jacobs is doing it, and also really, he's doing a terrific job too, so.
Mhm. Cool. Good. Who else has comments or questions, things they want to discuss? Oh, yes. Tom.
Can I just circle back to
Yeah.
what Ricky Ball said about, I think she was talking about the Citizens Leadership Academy. And we haven't done that for a long time, and I was actually invited to be in the first group that did that, and I found that so valuable. So I just want to put a plug in for reinstating that, because it really teaches you a lot. You really learn a lot about the different committees and like it would be great to have the CPA people come in. I mean, it's just like a really educational, informative thing. So I don't know if select board's in charge of that or whatever.
And no, select board isn't, but I can tell you that at the finance committee budget hearings last year, the thought was of restarting it, the Leadership Academy, last fall. Obviously, it didn't happen.
Yeah,
So I'm hopeful that it's in this year's budget. I don't know if it is.
so it's a budget issue or,
Well, someone has to run it. So there
Okay.
has to be somebody that's in charge of the program that has to run it.
okay,
So I don't know where that stands, but I've heard that from many people, especially people that have participated in it, that they found it incredibly valuable. So I am hoping that it restarts, and if it's not in this year's budget, it had been run by someone in the community services department. I did not ask the current director if that's part of their budget or not.
I mean, so it's a couple of things are happening concurrently. There's a human services study that's doing a comprehensive view of all of the human services we're offering on the municipal side. So I know part of the, I'll say, delay in that is probably affected by this work that's going on. I think it's more of a question of how and when as opposed to if. Everyone knows it's valuable.
Yeah.
The other thing we've
Okay.
talked about, and I know Jay is on top of Laura Paddock, the communications director. One of the things we pushed for a few years ago also was just on our web pages, have each department head do a quick video. Hi, I'm so-and-so. This is what our department
Yeah,
does.
that's a
Just
great
have a
idea.
primer for each
Yeah.
department on the website
Yeah.
itself. So when people go there, so I know there's goals of sort of a town website 2.0, 3.0 that's really much more of an engaging tool and transparent, able to provide some of this transparency. Because I think the Citizens Academy is awesome, but
yeah,
we could probably disseminate all of that
The pieces
information
of it,
through our existing,
Yeah.
ways, just to help people that are looking while we're building it back up, because I do think it's important for the community engagement.
So we have,
but my other
Oh.
comment before we end is that I'm aware we have the two of you together. And it's like such an awesome option because,
I didn't realize you were speaking, to be honest with you. It was just the luck I had. So I didn't want to.
I mean, I just-
And I was like, I definitely just shut up as much as I could right
I mean,
now.
I just think it is maybe appropriate to thank you, Mr. Paul Joseph, for your hard
Yes.
work on the select board. I mean, what I really like about you is your enthusiasm. You always have good ideas, and it's a thankless job. It's a hard job.
Until now, thank you.
And you have served really, really well, and I'd like to suggest with Coffee with Purpose, I don't know that Paul would be willing to do it, but sometimes places do exit interviews, like, what did you learn, right? And I just think it would be awesome to like have a conversation with Mr. Joseph, like, what did you learn from your time on the select board? And because you obviously have ideas about the charter commission and going forward, and I'd love to pick your brain or have the chance to do that. So that's my suggestion.
Yeah, yeah, if he'll agree to come.
We did that on speech at Rotary the other
It's
day.
kind of hard to get here, but
We know
yeah.
what-
Yeah, no, look, I've never been bashful about talking, so it's yeah. And I'd like to acknowledge, Ricky and others on this this meeting. Everyone in this room and everybody that participates in this has been involved in town government to a certain degree. So, but thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I'm not going far. I'm gonna stay involved with economic development. I'm hopefully gonna continue to kind of focus on things that use the knowledge that I've gained to help some of these things. So I think one of the things I will say, and Linda knows this from serving on FinCom, so you walk into a job thinking you're gonna do X, and all of a sudden you get hit with a lateral or something comes out of the blue. The
Right,
dam, for me, I
Right.
mean, half of my chairmanship was dealing with the dam,
Right.
dealing with 5 Auburn Street, the Elliott School, and our police issue. So when I was chair, I was
Yeah.
putting in a ridiculous amount of hours on those things, which precluded me from making progress on other things I really hope to get done. And so you never know what's gonna come across, especially in the select board seat, because it's everything but schools,
yeah,
right, will come through the select board.
Hmm.
So to me, that's the agility you have to demonstrate, and to your point about listening and just sort of providing a fair environment for people. The most important thing for our community is people need to feel like they've been heard. And my observation is a lot of times in the interest of ownership or domain responsibility, people assert their power before actively listening. And so I think it puts
Yeah.
off a lot of people in the community and all of a sudden further polarizes us. And I've seen that happen with us with the Civil War, or a Confederate flag that popped up a few years ago on the Common.
Mhm.
I saw it with the school committee with the flagpole. There are things that come up that are emotionally charged issues.
yeah,
That at some point, I think it's important to give everybody the air in the room first, then as a body act. But I think we're in this politically charged environment that the next year in particular, and I've talked to Linda about this, and the next year is just gonna be a bloodbath in terms of media, misinformation, disinformation, polarization. No matter
Yeah.
what happens with tomorrow,
Yeah,
there's gonna be
I
an argument
agree.
about something,
That's right.
right? It's inevitable. So to me, what we can do as a community is acknowledge that and be over the top empathetic, listening, and making sure that we're all in agreement that aren't we lucky to have just this to be complaining about? Because I look around the rest of the world right now and I think, my goodness, what a place of privilege every one of us in Natick sits
right.
to be complaining about each other the way we are.
Well, it just seemed appropriate to express appreciation to you for your work, and this space is awesome. You have been like so generous in creating
yes.
this space for these community conversations, and
That's the reason
again,
I'm leaving the
let,
board.
have him back, like our community exit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great idea, great
And
idea.
if you want it, just in terms of a community roast, Wednesday night, after we install Linda, we'll be celebrating her chair, or assuming the chair, am I leaving the chair on the board? At 7 South Board and Bottle at 6:30, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so our
Oh, yeah.
official handing of the baton on Wednesday.
But,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay. Well, I do want to be mindful that there are 3 folks with their hands up. I think Brindley and then Rick and then Cindy. So Brindley, you want to go first?
Sure. My first comment is that I actually had on my list to bring up the same thing as Ricky did about the Citizenship Academy, and then Donna, and say that I had spoken to Kathy Lentini, who was a big part of it the first time around. And she said that she, even though she's retired now, she'd be happy to contribute to any conversations. So if you want to get that name to Jay, or if you want that name as well for that, I think she'd be a great resource for that. The second thing is when you had about projects and collaboration in the town and it seemed like so much as we talk about collaboration, and I know one of the things, since school committee is one of my interests, I know one of the things that I hear from the community when I'm talking is how people wish that there was a different level of public collaboration and communication between the select board and the school committee. What happens to buildings, where things go, vendors, all of that type of stuff. And I'm wondering if there's a way to put that on the list, to think about it moving forward, so that there is a different level of communication. We all realize that there's a separation legally from the state about how the autonomy that the school committee has, and that the schools have in separation. But I do believe that that is an issue that comes up a lot in my conversations with the community, that people would like to see it be a broader, more public, collaborative process, conversation.
Yes, thank you. I just, couple things to add on there. Last year, the year before, I think this had happened prior in past times, but I reinstituted a joint budget meeting between the finance committee, the school committee, and the select board. And no one wants to necessarily have more meetings, but I think that, you know, having some sort of a formal process to get together between some of the boards might be a good idea. That's certainly come up in my conversations. But I do want to let you know, and if you don't know this, that the town administrator does have weekly meetings, the department head meetings, where the superintendent is also included. So at the staff level, there are conversations that take place continuously. You know, that's different from a board level conversation with the public, but you know, there is that cooperation that is happening in town.
Yeah, those of us who have been paying attention have been grateful for that over the past few years. We've noticed that, and thank you for making that large joint budget meeting. There are many of us that are very, very grateful for that. We consider it very helpful. So thank you. I think really it's what I'm hearing from the community is that not that that's behind closed doors, but that it feels like the public would like to hear more about it. So it really is more about the public presentation of the community collaborative effort between the two sides of our town, because I think a lot of people really do still see it as two sides, you know, town and schools, instead of one town and two areas working together. So that it was just a thought to share.
Thanks. Rick?
Yes, not to beat the dead horse, but I've been interested in this, you know, citizens education program, or whatever it's called, and asked about it every year. And one of the things about it, I think it's great. Transparency isn't just one thing, though. That requires a lot of commitment along, you know, I guess several months of showing up, you know, to go through that, as I was told anyway. I just think, to Paul's point, I've been looking at the org chart and you know, I've been to Natick, Mass, I don't know how many millions, hundreds of times, but never occurred to me to go to the town administrator's thing and look at an org chart. And it's there, it's not alive. And for instance, just to be quick on this, I don't see where the town, what communication manager, I guess that's called, or whatever. I've met him last year once, early on in the tenure, and it was, you know, it was clear that he had a lot of thinking, you know, he wanted to do a lot of thinking about things. But that position, somebody needs to be in charge of this transparency thing if it's going to happen, and it needs to be you know, it needs to be done in a lot of different ways. You could even have something that display in the library, you know, a screen you could click on, and, you know, show you when meetings, what night meetings are, and, you know, who's the chair and how do you contact. It's just, you know, it's a never ending thing, transparency. It needs to be approached from a lot of ways. It isn't just the citizens course, which would attract a few very dedicated volunteers. And the last point I would make is that I think town meeting members should meet and be oriented as well, before they start. New town meeting members, I think that should be offered at least. And I know something along that lines has been done. I would just encourage it to be done, you know, rigorously, I guess, you know, so that we're all educated. Thank you. That wasn't a question.
Just to point out that I do believe that the moderator always does have a session for new town meeting members. So that happens, and there's also a town meeting member handbook that's available for new
Right.
members. So,
Right.
you know, if there's something more that needs to be done there, then, you know, I'm sure the moderator would be open to hearing it.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
spoken several times in
Yeah.
this group of kind of having a buddy system of having new town meeting members buddy up with a experienced one, just to explain some of the intricacies of things.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. But I don't know that we've really taken significant action to implement it. It's just. Yeah. Cindy.
There
Oh,
was a
go ahead.
question at
Hi,
the end
Rick.
of mine, that just, you know, I was, just to Paul perhaps, because I'm sure he knows. Who does the communication manager report to? Is that Jamie or who is that?
That's Jamie.
Yeah, it's to Jamie, and it's a new
Okay.
position, and we need 10 of him. So that's part of the
Yeah.
problem we've got. It's a new, you know, it's a relatively new position, and yeah, if he had 10 people, a lot of these things you're talking about. So this is the other thing I just beg as community members, as town meeting members, as elected officials, everyone takes into account. We're also in this very, very delicate moment in time, which spans several years, of we're filling our staff with great people, but the fragility of keeping them is extremely high. So I think it's really important, like, it's nothing dispirits an employee worse than telling them what they know they need to do, have it in their mind that they know they need to do it, and hammer them as to why hasn't it been done. And on the one hand, you don't want to give a free pass to people that aren't stepping up and doing their jobs. But on the other hand, my experience has been more the former, that we've got great people that know what needs to be done. But I used to make the analogy with economic development. I mean, now, thank goodness, Amanda Loomis has a quasi full staff. She could still probably use 3 or 4 more people. But I used to draw the equivalent of saying, great, we just brought Big Poppy onto the team, but we gave him a wiffle bat to work with. So it's like we have to acknowledge what the town has not done to invest in institutional memory, information systems. So even creating what you just talked about, Rick, 100%. And this guy, you know, Jay knows this stuff like the back of his hand. We just don't have the foundation to do that yet. And he certainly doesn't have the bandwidth, especially when he's pulled into helping write press releases for a volunteer board when something happens in the public that Jamie and the board and the police chief need to respond to. So it's like, these are the things, you know, it's a wish list.
Thank you.
Right, no,
Paul.
absolutely, that's part of my
Again.
exit interview, we can shorten the next meeting a little bit. It's
It's
No,
called,
that's
in all
called-
honesty, that's the things the public doesn't see, like all these things, like when I was chair, I wanted to meet quarterly with the school committee, but you know, we had the school department was in a different place with its committee, and it was very difficult as chairs to make it happen. So it's like, these are things we are aware of, and I think, again, what people don't see because they're not involved is what Linda said. The importance of the superintendent and the town administrator getting along goes 80% of the way there, because we are moving with centralized accounting in the munis system. We are moving with staffing decisions and consolidating departments with like functions. There are great things happening that a lot of people aren't seeing yet. And I think, again, the problem is if you walk into the operation while the doctor has the body on the table and you know, the decision has been made, and start criticizing the surgeon might walk away. So that's where I'm just very careful about, you know, be aware. Most of the time people come at you, and in this role in particular, Linda, be forewarned, and it's like they're gonna start accusing us of not doing this or of doing this, and the fact is it's being done or has been done, but it's a matter of timing. And while the public does have a right to know, sometimes not in the moment that it wants to.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest thing we had to deal with, in particular with the police situation.
I think sometimes what's unfortunate is the loudest voices are the ones that have a mentality that, well, of course you're screwing up. Let's just talk about how you're screwing up, and you know, talk about a demotivator. But Cindy's been very patient. So Cindy, go ahead.
So I know we're running towards the end of time, and that Ricky also has a question. So can you give like a 1-minute summary of like what the selectman's job is, or what the purview is? And then I'm completely naive about all of this, and I could go on the line, but like, how often do you guys meet? And do you always meet as a select board? Does the select board, do individuals on in the select board meet on other, like, be representatives on other committees?
Okay, so the select board the quick summary is they're the chief policy makers of the town. So they create broad policies for the town. They hire the town administrator, that's probably the most important thing. There's also other positions that they hire, like the police chief and comptroller. They're the water commissioners, so you know, if you tune into some meetings, you might see the select board dealing with abatements and things like that. They're the road commissioner, so there's various statutorial things that the select board is responsible for. In general, they meet twice a month. Although, you know, there's other times when there are more frequent meetings. And then the select board does have members that are representatives to other committees in town. I haven't seen that list yet. I'm sure I will see that on Wednesday about who does what. Not officially. I mean, I don't think they don't sit on any committees, do they, Paul? Or they do, some of them they do sit on. It's not just representative, okay.
Yeah, no, some we
So-
liaise to without
yeah.
a voting voice, some we do
Okay.
have a voting.
Thank you.
Kind of the 1 minute discussion, help.
Good.
Like the Natick Affordable Housing Trust, we have a
Right.
liaison, the
Yeah.
Economic
Yeah.
Development Committee, is another one, start thinking about big issues.
Yeah. And does the term begin immediately then, right after election? Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, all of the new offices, people that are elected,
Hmm.
I think they're, before the select board meeting on Wednesday, there's gonna be like, there's usually a mass sign in where everybody comes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Ricky, did you have another comment or question?
Yes, I did. I want to publicly thank Paul Joseph for his service. I really, it's a point of pride that I think I discovered Paul. I may not have been the only one, but I
That's great.
encouraged him, and I've enjoyed periodically sitting down and talking with Paul about town issues. The thing about Paul that I absolutely love is his vision. He looks down the road at what Natick could be in 10 years, and he sees the paths that could take us there. He is a dynamic person that way. He knows how to correct for what happens in time and still get us to the desired place. When we started on the rail trail, Paul and I had conversations about what that could do to the Golden Triangle and housing and transportation and future development. And I so wish that we had a nonprofit development corporation that Natick could be active in terms of acquiring properties that could be put together for future projects to enhance the vision of the downtown and the best use and the best conductivity between our downtown and the Golden Mile of Route 9. Paul, I really, and your using your space to promote civic engagement and to promote that sense of community amongst so many of the newer people who come into town. I think that you're a priceless resource to Natick, and I hope that you have other ways of working towards the future. I love what you've done so far, and I look forward to what you're going to do. Love you.
Oh, nice.
And
I credit and blame you for this most recent term, so thank you, Ricky. No, thank you very much for those kind words, and absolutely, no, yeah, I remember first meeting you in Jay, so that's,
Thanks. Donna, did you want to have a closing comment, but then I want to
Just
let
really-
Linda have the last word if she wants.
Just really quick, I want to say too that I'm really jealous of this because I've always wanted to do it and it's not going to happen. But Paul Joseph is running the Boston Marathon. And
Ooh.
he's running it to also benefit the Natick Service Councils, so, a suggestion is maybe to, make a donation for his run. Maybe somebody could put it in the link. I don't have
Yeah,
it up
do
to
that.
do
Yeah.
it, but,
Mhm.
I think you just are our community member from all the way, so thank you.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Linda, anything, closing words or comments for us? Thank you so much for spending the morning with us.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad to be here. Nice to see the turnout, which is bigger than I was expecting. You know, everyone was like, oh, not many people are gonna show, but I'm grateful for those of you that did come. I hope that you will reach out if you have any concerns, and let me know. I'm very approachable, so I would hope that, if things do come up that you feel like the select board needs to know about, please reach out to me. I'll have a select board address some
Later
point
this week.
on Tuesday,
Right. Yeah,
or Wednesday, and I hope to hear from you.
good. Okay. Well, thank you very much. That will conclude us for today. I'll turn off the recording.
Next week.
Yes, next week, we are gonna have